One. Good morning. My name is Luke Harmon, and I am author of Theory Time Podcasts.
And my name's Micah Dickenson, co-host of the Theory Time podcast.
In our episode today, we would like to examine one of my favorite theories, groupthink, and then analyze a rhetorical artifact. Today, the artifact that we went with was George Orwell's Animal Farm. Would you like to
Yeah,
talk a
so
little bit about Animal Farm today?
sure, Luke. So Animal Farm was a book written by George Orwell, and it clearly demonstrates this communication theory groupthink very well and provides us with incredible insights into our own society and culture. For those who may not be familiar with Animal Farm, it was published in 1945 and is a book written about barnyard animals who overthrow their human masters and establish their own government on the farm. The pigs on the farm convince all the other animals that they must all work together and be in complete agreement, total agreement, so that no one can interrupt and stop what they're trying to do. That's the gist of Animal Farm.
Thank you, Micah. That is a great description of Animal Farm. And I think it just ties so well into our theory, groupthink. I mean, groupthink is when you have maybe a group of individuals that come together. They have a shared set of moral boundaries, beliefs, ideas about the world. And you might not agree with this group, but you are too scared to stand out or to speak out against their
Right.
shared ideas because you're scared that you are going to get ridiculed and you're going to get shut down by them. And so maybe you'll keep that theory or your difference in opinion to yourself. And then maybe over time, you might even start to form and shape your ideas towards what the group thinks. And this is crucial to George Orwell's Animal Farm because the pigs, as you were saying, are trying to be the leaders. They're trying to be in charge. They're trying to take that step and they're trying to shut down anyone who has a voice against them by saying things like, oh, well, you're too dumb to understand, is one thing
Right.
that they would say frequently. And so this would make the other animals almost too nervous to speak out against what's going on there. So thank you for that great description of Animal Farm. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that as we move forward?
Well, like you were saying, Luke, they criticize them and they get the other animals to a point where they start thinking the same as them. They coerce them into thinking the same way that the pigs are thinking, and that leads right into what we call groupthink.
Absolutely. Thanks, Micah. I would definitely have to agree with you there. I think that popular opinion, thoughts, and ideas can be swayed and influenced so heavily. We see it in politics throughout the world. We see it in mass media. That's one that has been coming to life recently in our kind of modern age of media. We see that a lot. And I just think that those two things really go hand in hand, groupthink and George
Right.
Orwell's Animal Farm. I think this was almost a warning from George Orwell trying to say, hey, this is a serious issue that I would like to address. And so he put that into book form and he gave a very descriptive ideas so that we could really get a good grasp and a good sense of what's going on. How do you think that George Orwell's Animal Farm is relevant to, say, today's society, Micah?
Well, well, Luke, let's look at the main points that kind of characterize groupthink. You have one, stereotypes, right? And so we see that in culture everywhere. Oftentimes, the political left, uh, things like LGBTQ and Black Lives Matter, they like to stereotype us and stereotype the right, stereotype Christians, and stereotype the average working man and anybody really who doesn't fall into what they believe. And then two, you have self-censorship. They in Animal Farm, they got the animals, the barnyard animals, to the point that they didn't say anything for fear the pigs might say something. They started censoring themselves, and that's what they're trying to do to us. They've got some people to the point that we're scared to be politically incorrect. Um, and three, pressure on those who disagree. If anybody disagrees with what you're saying, then make fun of them. That's what we see in our culture today. And I think woke ideology is just a clear example of groupthink, whether it is political correctness, the Black Lives Matter movement, social justice, the whole gender sex redefinition thing, and all those activists and leaders in the woke sect enforce their ideology by promoting those stereotypes and self-censorship and direct pressure upon any dissenters. And they prohibit any motivation to consider or think for themselves, to consider any alternative to what they believe. And we see that in Animal Farm, and we see that in our culture today.
Absolutely, Mike. I would have to agree with you very strongly there. Just the other day, I happened to be driving down the road and I actually saw a church flying the
Mm,
pride flag. And that just hit me. I never, in all my years, would have ever thought that I would have seen a church flying a pride flag. That just really blew me away. But it got me thinking so deeply about how there's this deeply rooted evil that has been working its way into every aspect of our
that's right.
country. We see this political agenda trying to be pushed in schools, now
Mhm,
churches. Once you start pushing this idea into those places, you know that popular opinion is slowly over time going to start to sway in one direction. Groupthink is very easy in small groups, but on a large scale, it is much harder and it takes much more careful planning. And leaders like the pigs in George Orwell's Animal Farm are so calculating in how they do this, how they strategically place people in certain spots to just try and
mhm,
sway and put doubt. Colleges, universities, that is a huge place. Why? Because a good majority of youth are going to college now after they graduate. Well, who are you going to get to go out into the world to promote these ideas? The youth. So,
mhm.
where do you start? In the colleges. And we see that everywhere in our country today. And I think that it is a dangerous movement that we all need to be thinking about. And if we could, Mike, I'd like to just wrap up by analyzing this from a biblical worldview and looking from that perspective. So, tell me, how would you look at this modern issue of groupthink through a Christian lens?
Well, as you said, Luke, what they want us to do is just follow along. And as Christians, that's simply not an option. The Bible is very clear what is right and what is wrong. And Jesus was pretty clear in his teachings, what is right, what is wrong. And the world would like to say that Jesus was completely love. And by that, by completely love, they mean that he he didn't ever criticize anything or didn't ever call anything wrong, but he did. And so as Christians, we have to realize that love doesn't always go with what people say. And sometimes it means we have to stand up and stand out and not go with popular opinion, not go with what people are trying to, the agenda people are trying to push and what the group is thinking. And so as Christians, we have to be loving, we have to be kind, we have to be gracious in our speech, but we also have to be truthful and we have to know what is right and to stand for it, to take a stand for it, even if that means going against what our friends think, what the people around us think, going against the cultural norm. We have to be ready to take a stand for Christ and to be unapologetic about our faith.
Absolutely. That is a great analysis of these modern issues from a biblical perspective. I'm so happy to hear these thoughts portrayed, I think that we need to be not only thinking about these things, but talking about these things. I think getting them out into the open and just letting people know that we can still be loving and kind towards others as Christians, but still take a stand and know when to say this is wrong and I'm not going to stand for it. And I
Right.
think that's where the line is drawn. And we definitely need to be doing that in this country today. So I really appreciate your perspective on that. That was very good. Let's maybe go ahead and wrap this up. If you'd like to just walk us through kind of the main points that we talked about today, and then I'll go ahead and close us.
Yeah, sure. So we took a rhetorical artifact named Animal Farm by George Orwell, and then we analyzed that by a communication theory called groupthink, and then we looked at how that applied to our culture and society, and then briefly looked at what the Bible has to say about it. What look look at it through the Christian worldview, the Christian lens that we should look at all of life through. We should constantly be analyzing using these tools and using them through a Christian lens. And realizing that if we don't do that, we're not going to see the world properly and we're not going to know how to respond to the things we need to respond to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Micah. And thank all of you for tuning in today to listen to us to ramble on. This
Yeah.
is, once again, I'm Luke Harmon. This is Micah Dickenson, and we are co-authors of the Theory Time podcast. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.